The Italian sun reflected on the calm waters of the Arno River, creating a spectacle of golden light that seemed to dance on the surface. Vivian Thornton observed this phenomenon through the cafe window, her espresso cup already cold and forgotten between her fingers. A year ago, she could never have imagined she would be here, sitting across from Declan Hargrove, the man with whom she had shared the worst moment of her life, and who now, by a strange twist of fate, reappeared when she had finally found her inner peace. "So your research brings you to Florence for a whole month?" Vivian asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that betrayed a nervousness she hadn't felt in a long time. Declan nodded, his dark eyes never leaving hers. "The university wants me to develop a course on Renaissance architectural principles and their modern applications. Florence is the perfect laboratory." He paused, a small smile forming on his lips. "But, I must admit, running into you was the most unexpected part of this trip." There was something about his presence that felt both familiar and entirely new. They had met under the most painful circumstances, both betrayed by their spouses, and had spent only 2 days together during that confrontation at the country house. Yet here they were, a year later, talking as if they shared a history far deeper than their brief acquaintance would suggest. "How long have you been in Florence?" Declan asked, breaking the momentary silence. 3 months now. What started as a 2-week vacation somehow turned into an extended sabbatical." Vivian smiled, looking out at the city that had become her temporary home. "My law firm was surprisingly accommodating when I requested the time off. I think they understood I needed this after everything that happened." What she didn't say was how those 3 months had transformed her, how the ancient streets of Florence had witnessed her slow metamorphosis from a broken-hearted woman into someone who was beginning to recognize herself again. How she had rediscovered joy in small pleasures, sketching in cafes, wandering through museums, savoring gelato on sun-drenched afternoons. "And how is Sophia?" Vivian asked, referring to his daughter with Lorelei. A light immediately filled Declan's eyes. "She's incredible. Almost 4 months old now. I have photos, if you'd like to see them." Vivian nodded, and he pulled out his phone, showing her pictures of a beautiful baby girl with dark hair like her father's and striking green eyes that unmistakably came from Lorelei. As Declan swiped through the photos, telling stories about his daughter's first smile, her fascination with ceiling fans, and her remarkable ability to stay awake at precisely the hours when he most needed sleep, Vivian felt a strange mixture of joy and sadness wash over her. "She's beautiful," Vivian said honestly, even as her heart constricted slightly. The baby was living proof of the permanent connection between Declan and Lorelei, a bond that would never be broken, regardless of their divorce. "Thank you," Declan replied, his voice warm with paternal pride. Then, his expression shifting to something more cautious, he asked, "And your fertility treatments? The last time we spoke, you were determined to continue them." The question caught her off guard, though she should have expected it. During those intense hours at the country house, she had shared her deepest pain with this man. Nathaniel's betrayal made all the more cruel by his pretense of wanting children, while she underwent painful and invasive fertility treatments. "I'm still pursuing that path," she replied. "In fact, I just received promising news from my doctor back in Boston. My numbers are looking good for the next round when I return home." Declan's face brightened. "That's wonderful, Vivian. Truly." They continued talking as the afternoon stretched on, moving from the cafe to a stroll along the Arno, then to a hidden piazza for gelato. The conversation flowed naturally between them, covering their lives over the past year, their work, their interests, and the changes they had experienced since that fateful weekend. It was only when the sun began to set, painting the sky in dramatic shades of orange and pink, that Declan reluctantly mentioned his dinner obligation with university colleagues. "Would you like to meet again?" he asked, the directness of his question matching the steadiness of his gaze. "Tomorrow, perhaps," I'd love to hear more about your time in Florence. Vivian found herself agreeing without hesitation. There's a little trattoria that makes amazing pappardelle with wild boar ragout. 1 o'clock? As they parted with a light hug that lingered just a moment longer than necessary, Vivian felt something stir inside her. Not the desperate clinging of someone still wounded, but the tentative interest of a woman who had learned what truly mattered in relationships. The next day, Declan arrived precisely at 1 o'clock, bearing a small bouquet of sunflowers that immediately brightened her small rented apartment. Their lunch extended into another walk, which led to more gelato, which became drinks at a rooftop bar as the sun set over the city. 3 days later, they were still meeting daily, exploring Florence together, its hidden gardens, lesser-known museums, bustling markets. On the 5th day of their unexpected reunion, Declan suggested they visit the playground near the Cassine Park. Sophia arrives tomorrow, he explained, a mixture of excitement and nervousness in his voice. Lorelei agreed to bring her for the weekend. I thought perhaps I could show you where I'll be taking her. The invitation surprised Vivian. Meeting his daughter represented a step beyond their casual encounters, a glimpse into the most important part of his life. I'd love to, she said, despite the small knot of anxiety that formed in her stomach. The playground was lively with the sounds of children laughing and playing. As they sat on a bench watching the families, Declan pointed out the smallest slide. That's where I'll start with Sophia. She's too young for most of the equipment, but I think she might enjoy the sensation of sliding while I hold her. The care in his voice as he planned his daughter's first playground visit touched something deep within Vivian. She watched a young father push his toddler on a swing, the little girl's face alight with joy, and felt a familiar ache of longing. You're a wonderful father, she said softly. Declan turned to her, his expression serious. I'm trying to be. It hasn't been easy, navigating co-parenting with Lorelei, but Sophia deserves the best from both of us, regardless of our past. As they walked back toward the city center, a troubling thought began to take shape in Vivian's mind. Seeing Declan with his daughter tomorrow would mean witnessing his permanent connection to Lorelei. The woman who had been Nathaniel's mistress would always be in Declan's life, at birthdays, graduations, perhaps even weddings someday. Could Vivian bear that? And what about her own dreams of motherhood? Would any child she might have connect her forever to a man who might someday betray her, as Nathaniel had? That night, alone in her apartment, Vivian sat on her small balcony, looking out at the Florentine skyline. Her phone buzzed with a message from her sister Meredith, checking in about her upcoming fertility treatment. As she typed a response, Vivian found herself overwhelmed with conflicting emotions. Her growing feelings for Declan were undeniable, but so was her fear of being hurt again, of trusting too quickly. And then there was Sophia, an innocent child who would always bind Declan to the woman who had helped destroy Vivian's marriage. Could she separate her feelings about Lorelei from her feelings about the baby? Could she love a child who carried the genes of someone who had caused her such pain? As the lights of Florence twinkled below, Vivian made a decision. She would meet Sophia tomorrow. She would see Declan as a father. And then, with all the facts before her, she would decide whether this unexpected connection was worth pursuing or whether some wounds were simply too deep to risk reopening. The morning dawned clear and bright, a perfect day for a first meeting. Vivian dressed carefully in a light sundress, then checked her phone to find a message from Declan. Sophia has arrived. She's excited to meet you. Or at least, she drooled happily when I mentioned your name. See you at the cafe at 11. With a deep breath, Vivian texted back her confirmation. Whatever happened today would shape the course of whatever this relationship might become. She was stepping into uncharted territory, where the ghosts of past betrayals still lurked, but where hope, tentative and fragile, had also begun to bloom. The cafe Declan had chosen was nestled on a quiet side street, with a small garden patio shaded by lemon trees. Vivian arrived a few minutes early, her heart beating faster than usual as she took a seat at a table near the back. She smoothed her sundress nervously, wondering if she had made a mistake agreeing to this meeting. Seeing Declan with his daughter would make everything more real, not just his past with Lorelei, but the possibility of a future that included all these complicated connections. She spotted them before they saw her. Declan was walking slowly down the street, a baby carrier strapped to his chest. From where she sat, Vivian could just make out a tiny head with dark curls peeking out. The sight of him, this tall, distinguished man who had once intimidated her with his academic intensity, now tenderly adjusting a sun hat on his infant daughter, made something shift inside Vivian. He caught sight of her and waved, his face lighting up with a smile that reached his eyes. As he approached, Vivian stood, suddenly unsure of how to greet him with Sophia between them. "Sorry, we're a few minutes late," he said as he reached the table. "Someone needed an emergency diaper change right as we were leaving the hotel." Vivian laughed, the tension breaking slightly. "No apology necessary. I just got here myself." Declan carefully maneuvered himself into a chair, supporting Sophia with practiced hands. The baby turned her face toward Vivian, blinking solemnly with those striking green eyes, Lorelei's eyes. "Sophia," Declan said softly, "this is my friend Vivian. Vivian, meet Sophia Elizabeth Hargrove." "Hello, Sophia," Vivian said, surprised by the emotion that suddenly threatened to close her throat. The baby regarded her curiously before breaking into a gummy smile that transformed her tiny face. "She likes you," Declan said, sounding pleased. "She's usually more reserved with new people." "She's beautiful," Vivian replied honestly, though she couldn't help the thought that followed. "This is Lorelei's daughter. The woman who had an affair with my husband created this perfect little person." As if sensing her unease, Sophia chose that moment to reach out one tiny hand toward Vivian. Without thinking, Vivian extended her finger, and the baby grasped it with surprising strength. "She definitely likes you," Declan said, watching the interaction with undisguised pleasure. "She's quite discerning for someone who regularly tries to eat her own socks." The waiter came to take their orders, and as Declan requested a cappuccino while deftly adjusting Sophia in her carrier, Vivian was struck by how naturally fatherhood suited him. There was none of the discomfort or performative awkwardness she'd observed in some new fathers. He handled his daughter with confidence and obvious love. "Would you like to hold her?" Declan asked suddenly, catching Vivian off guard. Are you sure? It's been a while since I've held a baby." "It's like riding a bicycle," he assured her, already beginning to unbuckle the carrier. "Besides, my arms could use a break, and my coffee needs drinking." Before she could protest further, Vivian found herself with Sophia cradled in her arms. The baby weighed almost nothing, a warm bundle wrapped in a light cotton blanket. She stared up at Vivian with those penetrating eyes, and then, to Vivian's surprise, yawned dramatically before settling against her chest. "She's comfortable with you," Declan observed, taking a sip of his cappuccino. "That's rare. Usually she makes her opinion known if she doesn't like someone's holding style." Vivian found herself gently swaying, an instinctive movement to keep the baby content. "She's so perfect," she whispered, inhaling the sweet scent of Sophia's head. "How do you ever put her down?" "That's the million-dollar question," Declan laughed. "Some nights I just sit watching her sleep instead of getting rest myself. Lorelei says I'm spoiling her, but..." The mention of Lorelei created a small ripple in the peaceful moment. Vivian tried to keep her expression neutral, but Declan noticed the change. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know it must be strange, hearing about her." Vivian shook her head. "Don't apologize. She's Sophia's mother. It would be more strange if you never mentioned her." She looked down at the baby, who had drifted to sleep in her arms. "How is the co-parenting working out?" Declan considered the question, taking another sip of his coffee before answering. "Better than I expected, honestly. We have a detailed custody arrangement, but we're flexible with each other. Sophia spends most weekdays with Lorelei since her hospital schedule is more predictable now, and I take her on weekends. We're civil to each other, which is all I really hoped for at first. And now? Vivian asked, curious about where his thoughts on his ex-wife stood. Now, I'm grateful, he said simply. Not for the affair or the pain it caused, but for the fact that we've both put Sophia first. Lorelei is a good mother, different from what I might have expected, but genuinely devoted to our daughter. He paused, running a hand through his hair. Parenthood changed her. Or maybe it revealed a side of her I never fully saw during our marriage. The honesty in his assessment surprised Vivian. There was no bitterness in his voice, just a clear-eyed acceptance of their new reality. That's remarkably generous of you, she said. Not generous. Necessary. His eyes met hers. I couldn't live with hatred poisoning every interaction, not when Sophia deserves parents who can at least respect each other. He hesitated, then asked, what about you and Nathaniel? Have you had any contact since the divorce? The question took Vivian back to the last time she had seen her ex-husband, at the signing of their final divorce papers 6 months ago. He had seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the consequences of his choices. Not really, she answered. The divorce was surprisingly straightforward once the initial shock subsided. Nathaniel agreed to my terms without much argument. I kept the apartment in the city. He took a cash settlement. She didn't add that she'd heard he'd used the money to start his own investment firm, information that had reached her through mutual acquaintances. No lingering communication? Declan pressed gently. Vivian shook her head. We don't have what you and Lorelei have, a child connecting us forever. Once our assets were divided, there was simply no reason to stay in touch. Sophia stirred in her arms, making tiny sounds as she awakened from her brief nap. Her little face scrunched up, and for a moment Vivian feared she might cry. But then the baby simply blinked and returned to studying Vivian's face with solemn attention. I think she's wondering who you are, Declan said, smiling at his daughter's intense focus. I'm wondering that myself sometimes, Vivian admitted, surprised by her own candor. This past year has been about rediscovering who I am without the identity of being Nathaniel's wife. And who have you discovered yourself to be? Declan asked, his tone genuinely curious. Vivian considered the question as she gently bounced Sophia, who had begun to fuss slightly. Someone stronger than I realized. Someone who values honesty above comfort. Someone who still wants to be a mother, despite everything. This last admission came out softer than the rest. Declan reached for Sophia, who was now squirming more insistently. I think someone's hungry. Mind if I feed her here? Of course not, Vivian said, carefully transferring the baby back to her father's arms. With practiced efficiency, Declan prepared a bottle from supplies in the diaper bag he carried. As he fed his daughter, Vivian watched the tenderness in his every movement, the way he checked the temperature on his wrist, how he cradled Sophia's head, the soft murmurs of encouragement as she drank. The scene stirred complicated emotions in Vivian. For years, she had imagined Nathaniel doing these very things with their child, a child that never came to be because her husband had never truly wanted one. The fertility treatments she had endured, the hope and disappointment that had marked each month, all while Nathaniel carried on his affair with Lorelei. The memories still had the power to wound, yet watching Declan with Sophia didn't bring the pain she had feared. Instead, she felt a strange sense of possibility. This man, who had been wounded as deeply as she had been, had found his way to joy through his daughter. His life hadn't ended with betrayal. It had opened into something new and precious. Would you like to walk through the Boboli Gardens after she finishes? Declan asked, interrupting her thoughts. It's a perfect day for it, and Sophia loves being outdoors. The suggestion of extending their time together made Vivian's heart beat a little faster. I'd like that very much. The gardens were alive with summer flowers, the paths dappled with sunshine filtering through ancient trees. They walked slowly, Declan pointing out architectural details that most visitors overlooked, his professional knowledge making the experience richer. Sophia dozed in her carrier, occasionally waking to take in the colorful surroundings before drifting off again. Near a secluded fountain, they found a bench and sat, watching the play of water and light. The moment felt oddly domestic. A man, a woman, a baby, like a family enjoying a Sunday outing. The thought startled Vivian. "What is this, Declan?" she asked suddenly, gesturing between them. "We've spent every day together since we ran into each other. You've introduced me to your daughter. I need to know what you're thinking." He didn't pretend to misunderstand her question. "I'm thinking that meeting you again feels like finding something I didn't know I was missing," he said, his gaze steady. "I'm thinking that talking with you is easier than talking with anyone else I've known. I'm thinking that watching you with Sophia today made me realize how much I want you in my life." He paused. "But I also know we both carry complicated histories. I know trust doesn't come easily after what we've experienced." "It doesn't," Vivian agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I saw you with Sophia this morning, my first thought was about Lorelei, how she'll always be in your life because of your daughter. It scared me, the idea of being connected, even indirectly, to the woman who was with my husband." Declan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "And my first thought when I saw you holding Sophia was how naturally it came to you, and how unfair it is that you're still fighting for something that should have been yours long ago." The directness of his statement brought tears to Vivian's eyes. "I'm returning to Boston next month for my treatment," she said. "I don't know what will happen after that." "Then let's not try to predict the future," Declan suggested, reaching for her hand. "Let's just see where these next few weeks take us. No pressure, no expectations, just two people who found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, discovering if there's something worth building." As Sophia stirred against his chest, opening her eyes to gaze up at both of them, Vivian felt something shift inside her. A tentative opening, where once there had been only protective walls. This tiny being, innocent of the complicated history between the adults around her, reminded Vivian of what really mattered, the courage to begin again, despite all reasons for caution. "I'd like that," she said softly, squeezing his hand. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of shared experiences. Vivian and Declan explored Florence together, sometimes with Sophia, and sometimes alone when Lorelei took her for scheduled time. They visited museums, discovered hidden restaurants, and spent long evenings talking on Vivian's small balcony as the city lights twinkled below. With each passing day, Vivian found herself growing more attached not only to Declan, but also to Sophia. The baby's personality emerged more clearly, her determined focus when reaching for a toy, her belly laughs when Declan played peekaboo, her solemn observation of new surroundings. Holding her no longer felt strange or painful. It felt like a privilege. But as Vivian's departure date for Boston approached, an unspoken tension grew between them. What had begun as a chance reunion was becoming something neither had anticipated, something that would be painful to lose. The day before Vivian's scheduled flight back to Boston, she and Declan sat at a small trattoria overlooking the Piazza della Signoria. Sophia was with Lorelei for the afternoon, giving them a rare moment alone to discuss the unspoken question hanging between them. "So," Declan began, his fingers tracing the rim of his wine glass, "tomorrow." Vivian nodded, watching the tourists milling about the square below. "Tomorrow. My appointment with the fertility specialist is scheduled for Thursday morning." "And after that?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. She turned to look at him directly. "That depends on a lot of things. The results, whether they recommend proceeding immediately with the treatment, my sabbatical status at the firm, and us," Declan added quietly. The question hung in the air between them. 3 weeks of daily companionship had created something neither had anticipated, a connection that felt both new and somehow familiar, as if they had known each other far longer than their actual acquaintance. "I don't know," Vivian admitted. "I care about you, Declan, more than I expected to. And Sophia." Her voice softened at the mention of his daughter. She's wonderful, but there are so many complications. Declan reached across the table and took her hand. I'll be back in the States in 10 days. My research here is almost complete. And then what? She asked. You live in Chicago. I'm in Boston. You have Sophia to consider, and I'm potentially embarking on single motherhood. It's not exactly simple. Simple? No, he agreed, but worth exploring. I think so. His thumb traced small circles on her palm. I don't want to pressure you. You have important things to focus on right now, but I also don't want to pretend these weeks have been casual for me. Vivian felt a flutter of both hope and fear. They haven't been casual for me either, she confessed. But Declan, there's something I need to tell you. Something that's been troubling me. His expression grew concerned. What is it? She took a deep breath. Seeing you with Sophia made me realize something. If I do have a child through these treatments, that child will connect me to a donor forever. A stranger whose genetic material will shape my baby's life. I've been so focused on becoming a mother that I haven't fully processed what that means. She paused, gathering her thoughts. And watching you and Sophia, seeing how she connects you permanently to Lorelei, I started wondering if I'm prepared for that kind of permanent bond with someone I don't know. Understanding dawned in Declan's eyes. You're afraid of creating a connection you can't control. Yes, she whispered. After Nathaniel, after everything that happened, I've worked so hard to rebuild my life on my terms. The idea of tying myself permanently to another person, even indirectly through a child, is terrifying. But you still want to be a mother, he observed. More than anything, she confirmed. I just never imagined doing it this way. Alone, with a donor who's a stranger. Declan was quiet for a moment, considering her words. Parenthood is a leap of faith, no matter how you come to it. He finally said, When Lorelei told me she was pregnant, after everything that had happened, I was terrified. I didn't know if I could love a child that would forever connect me to someone who had betrayed me so deeply. But you do, Vivian said softly. Anyone can see how much you love Sophia. The moment I held her, he nodded. Nothing else mattered. Not the affair, not the divorce, not any of the pain that came before. She was just mine, perfect and innocent, and completely separate from all of that history. His words touched something deep inside Vivian. That's what I'm hoping for. And what about us? He asked again. Where do I fit into this vision of your future? Before she could answer, Vivian's phone rang, her sister Meredith calling from Boston. I should take this, she said apologetically. She's probably checking on my flight details. Declan nodded, releasing her hand. Of course. Vivian stepped away from the table to answer. Hey, Mer. Yes, I'm still on for tomorrow. The flight lands at 6:30. Her voice trailed off as she moved toward a quieter corner of the restaurant. When she returned several minutes later, her expression had changed. There was a new tension in her shoulders, a furrow between her brows. Is everything all right? Declan asked immediately. Not exactly, Vivian replied, sitting down heavily. That was my sister. He ran into Nathaniel yesterday. Declan's face darkened at the mention of her ex-husband's name. And, apparently, he asked about me. Wanted to know when I was returning from Italy. She twisted her napkin nervously. Meredith thinks he might try to contact me once I'm back. Why would he do that? Declan's voice was carefully controlled, but Vivian could sense the protective anger beneath. I don't know. According to Meredith, he looked different, whatever that means. She shook her head. It doesn't matter. I have no interest in speaking with him. But it did matter, and they both knew it. Nathaniel's potential reappearance in her life added yet another complication to an already complex situation. What do you think he wants? Declan asked. Closure? Forgiveness? Who knows? Vivian shrugged, attempting nonchalance, though her tense posture betrayed her. It's been over a year. The divorce is final. There's nothing left to say. Declan studied her face. Are you sure about that? The question hit a nerve. What do you mean? Just that. Unfinished business has a way of lingering, even when we think we've moved on. His eyes were gentle but searching. "Have you truly let go of everything that happened with Nathaniel?" Vivian wanted to say yes immediately, to assure both Declan and herself that her ex-husband had no power over her anymore. But honesty compelled her to consider the question more deeply. "I've forgiven myself," she said finally, "for not seeing the signs, for believing in a marriage that was built on half-truths. I've made peace with that part." She took a sip of water, gathering her thoughts. "But forgiven him? I don't know. I haven't had to face him. It's been easier to just move forward without looking back." Declan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "And now? Now I have to decide whether I want to hear what he has to say, or whether it's better to keep that door firmly closed." She reached for Declan's hand again. "But that's not a decision I need to make today. Right now, I want to focus on us. On this moment." He squeezed her hand in response, but before he could speak, his phone buzzed with a text message. Checking it, his expression changed to one of surprise. "It's Lorelei," he explained. "She's asking if she can drop Sophia off early. Apparently, there's an emergency at the hospital and she's been called in." "Of course," Vivian said immediately. "We should head back to your hotel." 20 minutes later, they were waiting in the lobby when Lorelei rushed in, Sophia in her carrier and a diaper bag slung over her shoulder. She stopped short when she saw Vivian standing beside Declan. "Oh," she said, clearly taken aback. "I didn't realize you had company." The moment was surreal. Vivian had not seen Lorelei since that night at the country house, the night her marriage had imploded, the night she had discovered Nathaniel's betrayal with this very woman. Lorelei looked different now, her hair shorter, her face bearing the slight shadows of new motherhood, but those striking green eyes, the ones Sophia had inherited, were unmistakable. "Hello, Lorelei," Vivian said, finding her voice surprisingly steady. "It's been a while." Lorelei glanced between Vivian and Declan, confusion evident on her face. Yes, it has." She turned to Declan. "I didn't know you two were in touch." "We ran into each other by chance," Declan explained, his tone neutral but firm. "Vivian's been living in Florence for several months. A flash of something, recognition, perhaps, or unease, crossed Lorelei's features. "I see." She handed over Sophia and the diaper bag to Declan. "I'm sorry to cut Sophia's time with me short. The hospital called. There's a complicated bypass surgery, and they need all hands on deck." "It's fine," Declan assured her. "We'll stick to the original plan for tomorrow's handoff." Lorelei nodded, then hesitated, her eyes moving back to Vivian. "It's good to see you looking well," she said awkwardly. "Thank you," Vivian replied, unsure what else to say to the woman who had played such a pivotal role in upending her life. With a final nod, Lorelei hurried out, leaving an uncomfortable silence in her wake. "Well," Declan said finally, adjusting Sophia in his arms, "that was unexpected." "Very," Vivian agreed, her heart racing from the encounter. She reached out to stroke Sophia's cheek, the baby's innocent presence a reminder that she was separate from all the adult complications swirling around her. "But she seems to be taking good care of Sophia." "She is," Declan confirmed. "Whatever else happened between us, she loves our daughter." They made their way up to Declan's hotel suite, a spacious accommodation with a separate bedroom where a travel crib had been set up for Sophia. The baby had fallen asleep during the handoff and transferred to the room, exhausted from her day with her mother. "She'll probably sleep for an hour or so," Declan said, carefully placing her in the crib. She had a busy morning at the Children's Museum with Lorelei. They moved to the sitting area of the suite, the unexpected encounter with Lorelei still hanging in the air between them. "Are you all right?" Declan asked, studying Vivian's face. "Honestly, I don't know," she admitted. "It was strange seeing her again. I've thought about her, of course. How could I not? But facing her in person..." She shook her head. "I expected to feel anger, resentment. Instead, I just felt nothing. Like she's a stranger who happened to be involved in a chapter of my life that's closed now." "That's not nothing," Declan observed. That's healing. Vivian considered his words. Maybe you're right. A year ago, I couldn't have been in the same room with her without falling apart or wanting to scream at her. Now, she gestured vaguely, she's just Sophia's mother. Someone from the past who will always have a connection to your life, but not to mine. Not anymore. Not unless, Declan began, then stopped himself. Not unless what? Vivian prompted. He took a deep breath. Not unless you and I continue what we've started here. In which case, Lorelei would be part of your life too, at least peripherally, because of Sophia. The reality of his words settled over them both. If they pursued a relationship, it wouldn't be just the two of them overcoming their past hurts. It would involve Sophia, and, by extension, Lorelei. I've been thinking about that, Vivian admitted. Watching you with Sophia these past few weeks has shown me what a package deal you are. And I've been asking myself if I could handle that, not just loving you, but accepting all the connections that come with you. The words had slipped out before she realized, loving you. From the way Declan's eyes widened slightly, she knew he had caught it too. And? He asked softly. And I think I could, she said, her voice gaining confidence, because Sophia is worth it. You're worth it. What we might build together is worth navigating the complicated history that brought us to this point. Declan moved closer on the couch, taking both her hands in his. Vivian, I need you to know something. When we met a year ago, we were both shattered by betrayal. We witnessed each other at our most vulnerable, our most wounded. I never expected to see you again, let alone find myself falling in love with you. Her breath caught at his words. Falling in love? He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. I didn't plan it. I certainly didn't expect it. But these weeks with you have been the most natural, the most right I've felt since before everything fell apart with Lorelei. You understand me in ways no one else could, because you've walked a similar path. I feel the same way, Vivian whispered. It's like you know parts of me that no one else has seen, not even Nathaniel, not even during the good years of our marriage. The mention of her ex-husband's name hung between them momentarily, a reminder of the complicated web of connections that had brought them to this moment. I don't want to rush you, Declan said, especially with your treatment coming up and everything you have to focus on. But I want you to know where I stand. When I return to the States, I want to see where this could go between us. If you're open to that. Before Vivian could respond, a soft cry came from the bedroom, Sophia awakening from her nap. Declan squeezed her hands once more before going to tend to his daughter. Vivian remained on the couch, her mind swirling with emotions and possibilities. She thought about her life a year ago, the devastating discovery of Nathaniel's affair, the confrontation at the country house, the painful process of divorce. She remembered the emptiness that had followed, the uncertainty about her future, the decision to pursue motherhood on her own terms. Never in those dark days had she imagined finding herself here, on the verge of something new, with a man who understood her pain, because he had lived through his own version of it. And now, complications were mounting. Nathaniel potentially re-entering her life. Lorelei's unexpected appearance today. The fertility treatment waiting for her in Boston. And most significant of all, Declan's admission of falling in love with her, and her own growing feelings for him. Declan returned with Sophia in his arms, the baby now awake and alert, her eyes taking in the room with curious interest. Someone's ready for dinner, he announced. I thought we could order room service instead of going out. Unless you'd prefer to be alone tonight? To prepare for your flight tomorrow? The question was asked casually, but Vivian heard the uncertainty beneath it. Was she pulling away after the encounter with Lorelei? After the intensity of their conversation? I'd love to stay, she said firmly. My last night in Florence should be spent with the two people who have made these past few weeks so special. Relief washed over Declan's face. Perfect. I'll order something for us, and there's pureed carrots for the little princess here. He bounced Sophia gently, making her giggle. As they settled in for their impromptu dinner, Sophia secured in a high chair provided by the hotel, Vivian found herself observing them both with a strange mixture of emotions. Here was this man she was rapidly falling for, and his beautiful daughter, who carried the genes of the woman who had helped destroy her marriage. Yet sitting with them felt right, felt natural in a way that defied logical explanation. Later, as Declan prepared Sophia for bed, bathing her in the suite's spacious bathroom, dressing her in soft pajamas, reading her a story in a gentle voice, Vivian stood in the doorway watching. The tenderness between father and daughter touched something deep inside her, a longing not just for a child of her own, but for this, a family built on love and genuine connection. When Sophia finally drifted off to sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath, Declan joined Vivian on the small balcony overlooking the city lights. "She's amazing," Vivian said softly. "She is," Declan agreed, pride evident in his voice. "Every day with her is a gift I never expected." "You're a wonderful father," Vivian told him, meaning every word. "It comes so naturally to you." "Nothing about parenthood is natural at first," he admitted, with a small laugh. "The first week after Lorelei and I brought her home, I was terrified. This tiny person depended on us completely, and we were two newly divorced people trying to figure out co-parenting while still processing our own grief and anger." He shook his head at the memory. "But then something shifts. You realize you'll figure it out as you go. That love is enough to see you through the uncertainties." His words resonated deeply with Vivian. "That's what I'm counting on," she said. "If my treatment works, when it works," she corrected herself, "I'll be doing this alone. No co-parent, just me figuring it out day by day." "Not necessarily alone," Declan said quietly, turning to face her. The city lights illuminated his features, his eyes serious and intent. "Vivian, I know this is fast. I know we've only reconnected for a few weeks, but I feel something for you that I never expected to feel again after everything that happened." Vivian's heart raced. "What are you saying, Declan?" "I'm saying that when I come back to the States, I want to see where this leads. I'm saying that if your treatment is successful, I'd like to be there for you, in whatever capacity you're comfortable with." He took her hands in his. "I'm saying that meeting you again, here in Florence, feels like the universe giving us both a second chance at happiness." The sincerity in his voice moved her deeply, yet caution born of past pain made her hesitate. "And Sophia? What about her?" "She's part of the equation, always," he acknowledged. "Which means Lorelei is too, to some extent. I won't pretend that's not complicated, but complicated doesn't mean impossible." "No," Vivian agreed softly. "It doesn't." She looked out at the Florence skyline, the domes and spires illuminated against the night sky. This city had witnessed her healing, her slow journey back to herself after betrayal had shattered her world. Now it was witnessing something else, the tentative beginning of hope, of possibility, of a future she had never imagined. "My flight leaves at 11 tomorrow morning," she said, turning back to Declan. "I need to be at the airport by 8. "I'll take you," he offered immediately. "Sophia and I both will." The thought of saying goodbye to them brought unexpected tears to her eyes. "I'd like that." "It's not goodbye," Declan reminded her, reaching up to brush a tear from her cheek. "It's just until I get back to the States." 10 days, she whispered. 10 days, he confirmed. "And then we figure out the next steps. Together, if that's what you want." In answer, Vivian leaned forward and kissed him. A gentle, tentative kiss that quickly deepened into something more urgent, more certain. His arms encircled her, pulling her closer, and for a moment, the complications of their past and the uncertainties of their future faded away, leaving only this: two people who had found each other against all odds, standing on a balcony in Florence, brave enough to believe in second chances. The Boston air felt different than Florence, crisper, more hurried, less forgiving. As Vivian stepped out of Logan International Airport into the early evening light, she felt the shift acutely. Gone were the warm terracotta buildings and meandering cobblestone streets. In their place stood the familiar skyline of glass and steel, the honking taxis, the purposeful stride of business people heading home after long days. Meredith was waiting at arrivals, waving enthusiastically from beside her car. The sisters embraced tightly, Meredith stepping back to examine Vivian with a critical eye. "Italy agrees with you," she declared, taking one of Vivian's suitcases. "You look different. Lighter, somehow." Vivian smiled, thinking of the past few weeks. "I feel different," she admitted as they walked to the car. "A lot has happened." Once they were settled in the vehicle, navigating through evening traffic toward Vivian's apartment in Back Bay, Meredith glanced at her sister. "So? Are you going to tell me about him?" "About who?" Vivian asked innocently. Meredith rolled her eyes. "The architecture professor who's had you mentioning we instead of I in every text for the past 3 weeks. Declan Hargrove, the ex-husband of your ex-husband's ex-mistress." She shook her head. "God, that's a mouthful." Vivian laughed, the complicated description somehow making the situation seem both more absurd and more real. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Meredith insisted. "How did you run into him? What happened? Are you together now? And why didn't you mention any of this earlier?" "I didn't mention it because I was trying to understand it myself," Vivian explained. "It all happened so quickly. One moment I was sketching at the Uffizi, the next I was sitting across from him at a cafe, and then suddenly we were spending every day together." She smiled at the memory of those first encounters. "It felt right, in a way I never expected." "And his daughter?" Meredith asked cautiously. "The baby with Lorelei? How was that?" The question brought Sophia's face immediately to mind. Her solemn green eyes, her gummy smiles, the perfect weight of her in Vivian's arms. "Sophia is amazing," she said softly. "Beautiful, sweet, completely innocent of all the adult complications around her." Meredith looked surprised. "That's remarkably healthy of you. I expected some conflicted feelings about her." "Oh, believe me, they were there at first," Vivian admitted. "The first time I saw her, all I could think was, this is Lorelei's daughter. But then Sophia reached for my finger, and she smiled at me. And suddenly, she wasn't Lorelei's daughter anymore. She was just Sophia, her own perfect little person." They pulled up to Vivian's building, a restored brownstone that had been her sanctuary after the divorce. As they carried her luggage inside, Vivian was struck by how unchanged everything was, as if her apartment had been frozen in time while she herself had transformed. "The doctor's office called to confirm your appointment for Thursday morning," Meredith said, setting Vivian's suitcase in the bedroom. "They said your lab results look promising." "They do," Vivian agreed, feeling the familiar mixture of hope and anxiety that accompanied each treatment cycle. "This could be the one, Mer." "And if it is?" her sister asked, watching her carefully. "What about Declan? Where does he fit into all of this?" Vivian sank onto the edge of her bed, suddenly overwhelmed by the question that had been haunting her since their farewell at the Florence airport. Declan and Sophia waving until she disappeared through security. The promise of 10 days hanging between them. "I don't know," she admitted. "He says he wants to see where things go when he returns to the States, that he's falling in love with me." The words still sent a thrill through her, even as they filled her with uncertainty. Meredith sat beside her. "And are you falling in love with him too?" "I think I might be," Vivian whispered, the admission both terrifying and liberating. "But it's all so complicated, Mer. He lives in Chicago. I'm here. He has Sophia to consider, which means Lorelei is permanently in his life. And I might be pregnant soon, embarking on single motherhood. Life is complicated," Meredith said simply. "That doesn't mean good things aren't worth pursuing." She squeezed Vivian's hand. "But right now, you need to focus on tomorrow, getting settled back in, preparing for your appointment. The rest will sort itself out." Vivian's phone buzzed with a text message. Declan, just checking that you arrived safely. Sophia says goodnight. Or she would if she could say anything besides ba and dada. Missing you already. A warmth spread through her chest as she typed a reply. Safely home. Missing you both too. Give Sophia a kiss for me. You're glowing, Meredith observed, eyebrows raised. I haven't seen you look like that in, well, ever. Before Vivian could respond, another text came through. This one, from an unknown number. Vivian, it's Nathaniel. Meredith mentioned you're back in town. I'd like to meet. There are things I need to say to you. Please. The warmth in her chest turned to ice. She handed the phone to Meredith, who read the message and cursed under her breath. I'm so sorry, Viv. I ran into him at Whole Foods, and he asked if you were still in Italy. I just said you were coming back soon. I never thought he'd reach out like this. It's not your fault, Vivian assured her, taking the phone back and staring at the message. After a year of silence, what could Nathaniel possibly need to say to her? You don't have to respond, Meredith reminded her. The divorce is final. You owe him nothing. Vivian nodded, but found herself typing anyway. I'm back. Very busy with appointments this week. What did you want to discuss? The reply came almost instantly. Thank you for responding. Could we meet for coffee? 20 minutes of your time. That's all I'm asking. Vivian hesitated then. Friday morning, 10 o'clock, Café Laurent on Newberry. She chose a public place, busy enough that their conversation wouldn't be overheard, but not so personal as to suggest any intimacy. I'll be there. Thank you, Vivian. She set the phone down, her mind racing. I don't know why I agreed to that, she said to Meredith. What good can come from seeing him again? Closure, maybe? Meredith suggested. A chance to face him on your terms, now that you're stronger? Maybe, Vivian agreed, though uncertainty gnawed at her. Or maybe I just want to show him that I survived, that I'm building a life without him that might be better than the one we had together. The next 2 days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Vivian unpacked, reconnected with colleagues from her firm, and prepared for her fertility appointment. On Thursday morning, she sat in the specialist's office, listening to Dr. Chen review her test results. Everything looks very promising, Vivian, the doctor said, smiling over her glasses. Your hormone levels are excellent, and the follicle development is right where we want it to be. I think we should proceed with the procedure on Monday. Hope bloomed in Vivian's chest. So soon? The timing is ideal, Dr. Chen confirmed. Of course, I need to caution you that there are no guarantees, but I'm cautiously optimistic about this cycle. As Vivian left the clinic, she felt a strange mixture of excitement and trepidation. If all went well, in less than a week she could be pregnant. The dream she had held on to through her divorce, through the pain of Nathaniel's betrayal, through the long months of healing, might finally be realized. She reached for her phone to share the news with Declan, then hesitated. They hadn't discussed exactly what his being there for her would mean if her treatment was successful. Would he want to be involved with her pregnancy? With her child? And how would that work with Sophia, with his life in Chicago, with all the complications of their respective situations? Instead, she texted, appointment went well. Procedure scheduled for Monday. How are you and Sophia? His reply came a few hours later. That's wonderful news, Vivian. We're both well. Sophia is becoming a champion crawler. Nothing is safe anymore. Counting down. 7 more days until we're back in the States. She smiled at the image of Sophia exploring her world with newfound mobility, then froze as another text came through. Lorelei mentioned running into you in Florence. She seemed surprised. Vivian stared at the message, unsure how to interpret its tone. Was Declan concerned about Lorelei's reaction? Was there more to that encounter than she had realized? It was brief and unexpected, she replied carefully. She needed to drop Sophia off early for her hospital shift. She seemed well. She asked about you today when she picked up Sophia, Declan wrote. Wanted to know how long we'd been seeing each other. A knot formed in Vivian's stomach. What did you tell her? The truth, that we reconnected by chance and have been spending time together, that it's been meaningful for me. Vivian relaxed slightly at his directness. How did she react? There was a long pause before his response. She seemed unsettled, asked if it wasn't strange given our history. I told her that shared experience of pain has given us a unique understanding of each other. She didn't seem convinced. Vivian could imagine the scene, Lorelai's surprise turning to discomfort, perhaps even jealousy. The thought was unsettling. Does her opinion matter? She asked, then immediately regretted the confrontational tone. Declan's reply was measured. For Sophia's sake, I need to maintain a functional co-parenting relationship with Lorelai. But her opinion about my personal life doesn't dictate my choices. You matter to me, Vivian. That's what's important. His words reassured her, but the exchange left her uneasy. She had naively assumed that Lorelai would be indifferent to her presence in Declan's life. The reality might be more complicated. The next morning, Vivian found herself at Café Laurent 15 minutes early, her heart pounding as she waited for Nathaniel to arrive. She had chosen her outfit carefully, a tailored blazer over a simple dress, professional but not severe, confident but not trying too hard. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, longer than she'd worn it during their marriage, when Nathaniel had preferred it pulled back in what he called her power attorney style. She spotted him before he saw her, entering the cafe precisely at 10 o'clock, scanning the tables with a familiar intensity. He looked different somehow, thinner perhaps, with new lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. He was dressed impeccably, as always, but there was a subtle change in his demeanor, a certain hesitancy that replaced his usual confidence. When his eyes finally found her, something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, at her changed appearance, or relief that she had actually come. He approached her table slowly, as if giving her time to change her mind about meeting him. "Vivian," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." "Nathaniel," she replied, nodding toward the chair across from her. "You have 20 minutes, as promised." He sat down, placing his hands flat on the table, a gesture she recognized from their marriage, his way of steadying himself before difficult conversations. "You look wonderful," he said. "Italy clearly suited you." "It did," she agreed, unwilling to elaborate. "But I doubt you asked to meet to discuss my travel experiences." A small smile flickered across his face, still direct as ever. He paused as a waiter approached. They both ordered coffee, creating a brief reprieve from the tension between them. When they were alone again, Nathaniel took a deep breath. "I wanted to see you because I owe you an apology. A real one, not the rushed and inadequate words I offered during our divorce proceedings." Vivian remained silent, waiting. "What I did to you was unforgivable," he continued, meeting her gaze directly. "The affair with Lorelai, the lies about wanting children, all of it. I betrayed not just our marriage vows, but your fundamental trust in me as a person." "Yes, you did," Vivian agreed, her voice steady despite the emotion rising in her throat. "I've spent this past year trying to understand why I did it," he said, working with a therapist, confronting some uncomfortable truths about myself. He looked down at his hands. "It wasn't about you, Vivian. It never was. You were an exceptional wife, an exceptional partner. The failure was entirely mine." The waiter returned with their coffees, allowing Vivian a moment to process his words. Was this what she had needed to hear? That the betrayal wasn't her fault? In some ways, she had moved beyond needing that validation, had come to that understanding on her own through months of healing. "I appreciate you saying that," she said finally. "But why now, Nathaniel? Why, after a year of silence?" He hesitated, turning his coffee cup in small circles. "Because I'm trying to make amends as part of my recovery. Because I couldn't move forward with my life until I had faced you and acknowledged the harm I caused." He paused. "And because I heard you were continuing with the fertility treatments, And I wanted to tell you how much I hope they succeed for you. You deserve to be a mother, Vivian. You'll be an extraordinary one." His words touched a nerve so deep that tears threatened. She blinked them back, refusing to show that vulnerability. "How did you know about my treatments?" "Mark Sullivan," he admitted, naming a mutual friend from their social circle. He mentioned it in passing, not realizing the significance. Vivian made a mental note to be more cautious about sharing personal details within their overlapping social circles. "Is that all you wanted to tell me?" Nathaniel hesitated again. "There's one more thing, though I'm not sure if it matters to you." He took a sip of coffee before continuing. "Lorelei and I, after that weekend at the country house, we tried to continue our relationship. It fell apart within weeks." Vivian wasn't surprised. After the initial shock and confrontation, what could have possibly sustained a relationship built on deception? "What happened?" "Reality," Nathaniel said simply. "Without the thrill of secrecy, without the fantasy we'd constructed, we had nothing in common except our mutual betrayal of the people who loved us." He shook his head ruefully. Once she learned she was pregnant with Declan's child, any pretense of a future together dissolved completely. Though Vivian had suspected as much, hearing the confirmation brought a strange sense of vindication. Their affair hadn't been the great passion they had imagined, just a tawdry deception that collapsed under the weight of its own emptiness. "I'm sorry it didn't work out," she said, not entirely sincerely. Nathaniel caught the edge in her voice and gave a sad smile. "No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. We deserved exactly what we got." He straightened in his chair. "Anyway, I heard through the grapevine that Lorelei and Declan are co-parenting their daughter now. They seem to have found a way forward that works for them." Vivian tensed, uncertain whether Nathaniel knew about her connection to Declan. Had Lorelei mentioned their encounter in Florence? Had words somehow gotten back to him? "Yes," she said cautiously. "I believe they have." Nathaniel studied her face, and she had the uncomfortable feeling that he could read more than she intended to reveal. "And you, Vivian? Have you found a way forward that works for you?" The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken implications. Vivian considered her answer carefully. "I have," she said finally. "It's taken time, but I'm building a life I'm proud of. A life that's true to who I am and what I want." He nodded, seeming genuinely pleased by her response. "I'm glad." He glanced at his watch. "It appears my 20 minutes are nearly up. I won't take any more of your time." As he stood to leave, Vivian found herself asking the question that had lingered at the edges of her mind since receiving his text. "Nathaniel, are you happy now?" He paused, considering her question with the seriousness it deserved. "I'm working on it," he said finally. "I'm learning to live with the consequences of my choices, to be a better person than I was with you." He offered a small smile. "Thank you for hearing me out today, Vivian. It means more than you know." And then he was gone, weaving through the tables and out into the Boston morning, leaving Vivian with a strange sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. She remained at the cafe after he left, finishing her coffee and reflecting on their conversation. There had been a time when seeing Nathaniel would have devastated her, when his apology would have felt too little, too late. But now, it was simply another step in the process of moving forward. She had survived his betrayal. She had rebuilt herself, and somewhere along the way, she had found the capacity to hope again. Her phone buzzed with a text from Declan. "Just booked my flight to Boston for next Friday. Any chance I could see you when I land? Sophia will be with Lorelei that weekend." A smile spread across Vivian's face as she typed her reply. "I'll pick you up at the airport. Can't wait to see you." As she left the cafe and stepped into the bright Boston morning, Vivian felt something settle within her, a quiet certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them. Monday would bring her fertility procedure, Friday would bring Declan, and somewhere in between, she would navigate the complex emotions of potentially becoming a mother while exploring this new relationship. The path ahead wasn't clear or simple. It was fraught with complications and uncertainties. But for perhaps the first time since discovering Nathaniel's betrayal, Vivian felt truly equipped to walk it, not as a victim of circumstance, but as the architect of her own happiness. Monday morning dawned with a pale golden light filtering through Vivian's bedroom blinds. She lay still for a moment, one hand resting on her abdomen, the significance of the day washing over her. After years of failed attempts with Nathaniel, months of planning as a single woman, and countless procedures that led to disappointment, today might be the day that changed everything. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. "Declan, thinking of you today. Whatever happens, you are not alone in this journey." The simple message brought tears to her eyes. 4 days had passed since her meeting with Nathaniel, 4 days of reflection and preparation, 4 days closer to Declan's arrival in Boston. At the fertility clinic, Dr. Chen greeted her with a warm smile. "Are you ready, Vivian? Your numbers couldn't look better." "As ready as I'll ever be," Vivian replied, following the doctor into the procedure room. An hour later, it was done. Vivian lay on the examination table, doctor's instructions to remain still for 30 minutes echoing in her mind. There was nothing more to do now but wait. First, for the 2 weeks until a pregnancy test could confirm success, and if successful, 9 months until she would hold her child in her arms. Many women report that this is the hardest part, Dr. Chen said, patting her hand gently. "The waiting. But try to stay positive. Everything looks very promising." Vivian nodded, her thoughts drifting to Florence, to Declan, and Sophia, to the strange and unexpected path that had led her here. Whatever happened next, she knew she was no longer the same woman who had discovered her husband's betrayal a year ago. She was stronger now, more certain of what she wanted, more willing to embrace the uncertainties of life. The days that followed passed in a blur of anticipation. Vivian returned to her law firm for a meeting about extending her sabbatical, reconnected with friends she hadn't seen in months, and prepared her apartment for Declan's visit. Through it all, she tried not to fixate on the possibility growing inside her, though her hand often strayed unconsciously to her abdomen, as if she could sense the miracle that might be taking place. Friday arrived with unseasonable warmth, the Boston air carrying hints of approaching summer. Vivian drove to Logan International Airport, her heart racing as she parked and made her way to arrivals. This was the first true test of what she and Declan had begun in Florence. Removed from the romantic Italian setting, back in the reality of their complicated lives, would their connection remain as strong? She saw him before he spotted her, tall and distinguished even in casual clothes, moving through the crowd with purpose. When his eyes found hers, his entire face transformed with a smile that erased any doubts she might have harbored. "Vivian," he said, reaching her in a few long strides and enfolding her in an embrace that felt like coming home. "Welcome to Boston," she murmured against his chest, breathing in the familiar scent of him. He pulled back slightly to look at her, his eyes searching her face. "How are you feeling? After Monday's procedure?" "Physically fine," she assured him. "Emotionally? A wreck. I won't know for another 10 days if it worked. Then we'll wait together," he said simply, taking her hand as they walked toward the exit. "If that's what you want." The question lingered between them as they drove to her apartment. How much of themselves were they willing to invest in this relationship with all its inherent complications? Once inside, Declan set down his bag and turned to her, taking both her hands in his. "Before anything else happens, I need to tell you something." Vivian tensed, preparing herself for whatever revelation might follow. "I've been offered a visiting professorship at MIT for the fall semester," he said, watching her face carefully. "I'd be teaching a special course on Renaissance architectural principles, the research I was doing in Florence." "MIT? Here in Boston?" Vivian asked, her mind racing with implications. He nodded. 3 months, with the possibility of extension to a full year if both parties are interested. "I'd be commuting from Chicago every other weekend to be with Sophia." "When did this happen?" she asked, trying to process this unexpected development. They reached out 2 weeks ago while we were still in Florence. I was going to tell you, but then everything with Lorelei showing up and your fertility procedure coming up, it never seemed like the right moment." He squeezed her hands gently. "I haven't accepted yet. I wanted to talk to you first." "Why?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Because it would mean being here, in Boston, with you. It would give us a chance to see if what we started in Florence can grow into something real, something lasting." His eyes held hers steadily. "But only if that's what you want too." The magnitude of what he was offering, rearranging his life to be near her, navigating the complexities of co-parenting Sophia from a distance, wasn't lost on Vivian. "What about Sophia?" she asked. "And Lorelei? How does she feel about you moving, even temporarily?" A shadow crossed his face. "Lorelei's not thrilled about the distance, but she understands the professional opportunity. We've worked out a schedule that would minimize disruption for Sophia." He sighed. "It won't be easy, Vivian. I'm not pretending it will be. There will be complications, compromises, difficult moments. Life is complicated," Vivian said softly, echoing her sister's words. "That doesn't mean good things aren't worth pursuing." A smile broke across his face. "Is that a yes? You want me to take the position?" Instead of answering, Vivian closed the distance between them and kissed him. A kiss that conveyed everything words couldn't. Her fear, her hope, her growing certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they were worth facing together. The weekend unfolded like a dream, exploring Boston together, sharing meals at Vivian's favorite restaurants, talking late into the night about everything and nothing. It wasn't Florence, with its ancient beauty and removed from reality quality, but it was real and immediate, and theirs. On Sunday evening, as they sat on Vivian's small balcony, watching the sunset paint the city skyline, Declan broached the subject that had been hovering at the edges of their conversation. "I told Sophia about you," he said, his voice soft in the gathering twilight. "Obviously, she's too young to understand much, but I showed her your picture, told her you were someone special to Daddy." The simple statement touched Vivian deeply. How did Lorelei react to that? Declan turned his wine glass slowly. She was concerned, worried that things are moving too quickly between us, that Sophia might get attached to you and then be hurt if things don't work out. "That's not an unreasonable concern," Vivian acknowledged, though the thought of Lorelei discussing their relationship still created a knot in her stomach. "No, it's not," he agreed. "But I told her that sometimes in life you have to trust your instincts, and mine are telling me that what we've found is worth exploring, worth fighting for." He reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. "Vivian, I know we haven't known each other long, at least not in the conventional sense, but that weekend at the country house, as painful as it was, showed me who you really are. Your strength, your dignity, your capacity for forgiveness. And these past weeks have only deepened my admiration for you." His words washed over her like a healing balm, chasing away the lingering doubts that had plagued her since her meeting with Nathaniel, since Lorelei's unexpected appearance in Florence. "I feel the same way," she said quietly. "You saw me at my worst moment, betrayed, heartbroken, angry, and still, somehow, you saw something in me worth connecting with." "I saw everything worth connecting with," he corrected, leaning forward to brush a strand of hair from her face. "And I still do." The next morning, Vivian drove Declan to the airport for his return to Florence to complete his research and prepare for his move to Boston. They stood at the security checkpoint, reluctant to part after the perfect cocoon of their weekend together. 2 weeks, he promised, holding her close. "I'll be back with all my things, ready to start the semester. And Sophia will come for long weekends, twice a month. I can't wait to see her again," Vivian said honestly. She must have grown so much already. "Babies change by the day at this age," Declan agreed, pride evident in his voice. "She's already trying to pull herself up to stand." He kissed her goodbye, a lingering kiss full of promise. "Call me the minute you know about the pregnancy test," he reminded her. "Day or night, I want to be there for you. Whatever the result, I will," she promised. As she watched him disappear through security, Vivian felt a sense of peace settle over her. Whatever happened next, whether her fertility treatment was successful, whether Declan's temporary move to Boston evolved into something more permanent, she was no longer facing life's uncertainties alone. The days that followed stretched endlessly, each one bringing Vivian closer to the moment of truth. She threw herself into work, accepting cases that had been on hold during her sabbatical, finding comfort in the familiar challenges of legal strategy. In the evenings, she and Declan video-called, sometimes with Sophia making guest appearances, babbling excitedly at the screen. On the morning of the pregnancy test, Vivian woke before dawn, her heart pounding with anticipation. Dr. Chen had suggested waiting for blood work at the clinic for the most accurate results, but Vivian couldn't bear the uncertainty another moment. She took a home test from the pharmacy bag on her bathroom counter, followed the instructions with trembling hands, and waited the prescribed 3 minutes that felt like an eternity. When the result appeared, she stared at it in disbelief, tears blurring her vision. Then she reached for her phone. Declan answered immediately, despite the early hour in Florence. "Vivian? Is it time?" "It's positive," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm pregnant." His joy matched hers, his voice thick with emotion as he shared in this moment she had dreamed of for so long. "I wish I was there with you," he said, "to hold you, to celebrate with you." "You are with me," she assured him, "in all the ways that matter." Later that day, blood tests at the clinic confirmed what the home test had already told her. After years of trying, months of treatments, Vivian Thornton was going to be a mother. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Vivian had her first prenatal appointment, confirming that everything looked perfect with the early pregnancy. Declan wrapped up his research in Florence and prepared for his move to Boston. And in a surprising development, Lorelei agreed to bring Sophia to Boston for Declan's first weekend at his new apartment, allowing them to establish a routine for their co-parenting arrangement. When Declan texted that they had landed at Logan, Vivian felt a flutter of nerves. This would be her first time seeing Lorelei since their brief encounter in Florence. The first time the three adults would be in the same space with full awareness of the new relationships forming. She waited in the arrivals area, scanning the crowd for Declan's familiar figure. When she spotted him, her heart leapt, but there beside him was Lorelei, pushing Sophia in a stroller. The sight of them walking together, looking for all the world like a family, created a moment of doubt that Vivian hadn't expected. Then Declan saw her, his face lighting up with a smile that was meant for her alone. He quickened his pace, reaching her in a few long strides and embracing her tightly. "You're here," he whispered against her hair. "You're really here." When they separated, Lorelei had approached with the stroller. She looked different than in Florence, more composed, more deliberate in her movements. "Hello, Vivian," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Declan told me your good news. Congratulations!" The acknowledgement of her pregnancy caught Vivian off guard. "Thank you," she replied, equally careful. Sophia broke the tension with a delighted squeal, reaching her arms toward Vivian as if remembering their connection from weeks before. "Someone's excited to see you," Lorelei observed, surprise evident in her tone. Vivian knelt beside the stroller, her heart melting as Sophia grabbed for her finger. "Hello, sweet girl. I've missed you too." The moment created a shift in the atmosphere, a reminder that whatever complicated history existed between the adults, this innocent child deserved their best efforts at civility and respect. "I should get going," Lorelei said after a moment. "My hotel is across town, and we've had a long flight." She turned to Declan. "I'll bring Sophia to your apartment tomorrow at 10, as we discussed." With a nod to Vivian, she reclaimed the stroller and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Declan and Vivian alone amidst the bustling airport. "That was not as awkward as I feared," Vivian admitted as they walked to her car. "Lorelai's trying," Declan said, "for Sophia's sake. And I think she realizes that what happened between us, our marriage, the affair with Nathaniel, it's all in the past now. We're all moving forward, finding new paths." As they drove to Declan's new apartment near the MIT campus, Vivian felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This wasn't the life she had planned, not even close to what she had envisioned when she married Nathaniel years ago. It was messier, more complicated, filled with unexpected connections and relationships that defied easy categorization. But it was real, and it was hers. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she was truly happy. 6 months later. "Are you sure you have everything?" Vivian asked, checking the diaper bag for the third time. "Diapers? Wipes? Change of clothes? Bottles?" Declan laughed, adjusting Sophia on his hip. "Yes, to all of the above, plus toys, snacks, and her favorite blanket. We're only going to the park for a couple of hours, not crossing the Sahara." At 10 months old, Sophia was a bundle of energy and curiosity, now walking with assistance and babbling constantly in her own language. She reached for Vivian, who took her happily, inhaling the sweet baby scent that never failed to fill her with wonder. "Sorry for being paranoid," Vivian said, bouncing Sophia gently. "It's just the first time I'll be responsible for her without you there." "You'll be fine," Declan assured her. "Besides, it's good practice." His gaze dropped meaningfully to Vivian's growing belly, now prominently rounded at 5 months pregnant. The ultrasound picture from the previous week's appointment was prominently displayed on the refrigerator of Declan's apartment. Twins, 2 little girls, a double blessing that had left both Vivian and Declan speechless with joy when Dr. Chen had first delivered the news. "Double trouble," Declan had whispered, squeezing Vivian's hand as they stared at the monitor, showing 2 distinct heartbeats. Now, as Vivian prepared to take Sophia to the park, while Declan attended a faculty meeting, she felt a flutter of both nerves and excitement. Over the past 6 months, she had fallen completely in love with this child, who had once represented all her complicated fears and uncertainties. Sophia now spent every other weekend with them, her presence a joy that Vivian cherished rather than a reminder of painful history. "Call me if you need anything," Declan said, kissing her goodbye. "But you won't. You're a natural with her." After he left, Vivian bundled Sophia into her stroller and headed for the small park near their apartment building. The fall day was perfect. Crisp air, brilliant foliage, a sky so blue it hurt to look at it. As they settled on a blanket beneath a maple tree, Vivian watched Sophia exploring the fallen leaves with serious concentration. "Your little sisters will love playing with you," she told the baby, who looked up at the sound of her voice and offered a gummy smile that melted Vivian's heart. The path that had led her here still amazed her when she stopped to consider it. After that weekend at the country house, when her marriage had imploded in betrayal and lies, she could never have imagined that she would find herself here, expecting twins, co-parenting a baby with the ex-husband of her ex-husband's mistress, building a life filled with more love and honesty than she had ever known in her marriage to Nathaniel. Declan's visiting professorship at MIT had been extended to a full year, and they were discussing what would come after, whether he would pursue a permanent position in Boston, whether Vivian might consider relocating to Chicago, how they would balance their careers with their expanding family, and the complexities of co-parenting Sophia across distances. None of it was simple. Co-parenting with Lorelai required constant communication and occasional compromise. Declan's commuting to Chicago on weekends, when Sophia couldn't come to them, meant time apart that neither enjoyed. And sometimes, in quiet moments, Vivian still found herself marveling at the strangeness of it all. That the woman who had helped destroy her marriage had inadvertently led her to the deepest love she had ever known. 2 months earlier, Vivian had run into Nathaniel at a charity function, their first encounter since their coffee meeting. He had been with someone new, a woman who looked at him with genuine affection. They had exchanged pleasantries, Nathaniel congratulating her on the pregnancy, Vivian wishing him well with his new relationship and investment firm. "You look happy," he had observed, a hint of wistfulness in his voice. "I am," she had replied, the truth of it resonating in her bones. Truly happy. Now, as she helped Sophia stand and take wobbly steps across the blanket, her phone buzzed with a text from Declan. "Meeting ending early. On my way to join my favorite girls. Love you both. All four of you, actually." Vivian smiled, tucking the phone away and returning her attention to Sophia, who was now attempting to stuff a colorful leaf into her mouth. "No, sweetheart," she said gently, redirecting the baby to a toy. "Let's save the leaves for looking, not eating." Sophia babbled in response, a stream of sounds that somehow conveyed perfect understanding, despite their lack of conventional meaning. 20 minutes later, Vivian spotted Declan crossing the park toward them, his pace quickening when Sophia squealed with recognition and tried to launch herself in his direction. "There's my girl," he called, scooping her up and spinning her around, eliciting delighted giggles. Then he turned to Vivian, helping her to her feet, with a gentleness that acknowledged her changing center of gravity. "And how are you feeling?" he asked, his hand coming to rest on her belly. "They've been doing gymnastics all morning," she replied with a smile. "I think they're excited for the park, too." As they gathered their things and prepared to head home, a young couple passed by, smiling at Sophia's antics. "Your family is beautiful," the woman said to Vivian. "Thank you," she replied without hesitation, because it was true. They were a family, not conventional, not what society might expect, but bound together by choice and love and the shared understanding that sometimes life's greatest blessings emerge from its most painful moments. That evening, after Sophia was bathed and settled in her crib for the night, Declan and Vivian sat on their small balcony, watching the lights of Boston twinkling against the darkening sky. "I have something for you," Declan said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. Vivian's breath caught as he opened it, revealing not a ring, as she might have expected, but a delicate silver pendant in the shape of the Duomo of Florence. "To remind us where it all began," he explained, fastening the necklace around her throat, "where we found each other again." "It's perfect," she whispered, touching the pendant with reverent fingers. "I do have a ring, too," he admitted with a small smile, "but I thought that could wait until after the twins are born. One life-changing event at a time." Vivian laughed, leaning into his embrace. Wise man. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, his hand resting protectively over her rounded belly, her head on his shoulder. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" she asked finally. "That night at the country house, when everything fell apart, did you ever think it would lead to this?" Declan considered the question, his fingers tracing gentle patterns on her stomach. "Never," he admitted. "I thought my life was over that night. I thought I'd never trust again, never love again." He turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the city lights. "But that's the thing about endings, isn't it? Sometimes they're just beginnings in disguise." 5 years later, the park was alive with the sounds of children playing, their laughter carrying on the spring breeze. Vivian spread out a picnic blanket in their usual spot beneath the maple tree, now in full leaf and providing perfect shade for their family gathering. "Careful on the slide, Lucy," she called, watching as one of the twins prepared to launch herself down the playground equipment with characteristic fearlessness. "I got her," Declan assured her, positioning himself at the bottom of the slide just in time to catch their daughter as she came down with a squeal of delight. Beside Vivian on the blanket, 4-year-old Emma carefully arranged a tea party for her dolls, her dark curls falling across her face as she concentrated on getting everything just right. Though identical to her sister in appearance, Emma's personality could not have been more different. Thoughtful where Lucy was impulsive, cautious where Lucy was daring. "Is Sophia coming soon?" Emma asked, looking up from her meticulous preparations. "Any minute now," Vivian assured her, Mommy Lorelei is bringing her right after ballet class. At 6 years old, Sophia had grown into a beautiful child, with her father's dark hair and her mother's striking green eyes. She split her time between Chicago with Lorelei and Boston with Declan and Vivian, the arrangement becoming more flexible as she grew older and started school. Though the logistics were sometimes challenging, the adults had developed a respectful co-parenting relationship that put Sophia's needs first. "There they are!" Lucy shouted, abandoning the slide and running toward the park entrance where Sophia, still in her pink ballet outfit, was walking hand in hand with Lorelei. The scene that followed would have seemed impossible to Vivian 5 years earlier. Lorelei greeting her warmly, the twins hugging their half-sister excitedly, Declan thanking his ex-wife for bringing Sophia a day early so she could attend Emma and Lucy's birthday party the following afternoon. "She couldn't stop talking about it all week," Lorelei said with a smile. "The ballet recital will be recorded, so she's not missing anything important." "We appreciate it," Vivian replied sincerely. Over the years, she and Lorelei had developed a relationship that, while never close, was founded on mutual respect and their shared love for the children who connected them. As Lorelei prepared to leave, promising to return for Sophia on Sunday evening, she paused beside Vivian. "They've grown so much since Christmas," she observed, watching the 3 girls now engaged in an elaborate game involving the tea set and several stuffed animals. "They're beautiful." "Thank you," Vivian said, the compliment all the more meaningful coming from someone who had once been positioned as her adversary. "Sophia's ballet has really taken off. She's so graceful." Lorelei's face softened with pride. "She gets that from her father. I have 2 left feet." The easy exchange would have seemed impossible in those early days, when the pain of betrayal and the awkwardness of their connection had threatened to overwhelm any chance of civility. But time, and the children who deserved their best efforts, had smoothed those rough edges into something approaching friendship. After Lorelei departed, Declan joined Vivian on the blanket, watching as all 3 girls now collaborated on what appeared to be a fairy kingdom built of twigs and flowers. "Happy?" he asked, his arm slipping around her waist. "Completely," she replied, leaning into his embrace. Their journey had not been without challenges. Declan had ultimately accepted a permanent position at MIT, necessitating complex arrangements for Sophia's time between Boston and Chicago. The twins' arrival had brought the expected chaos of new parenthood, amplified by having 2 babies at once, and there had been moments of tension, of uncertainty, of questioning whether they could really build something lasting from such complicated beginnings. But through it all, they had chosen each other. Day after day, they had chosen honesty over convenience, direct communication over assumption, forgiveness over resentment, and in doing so, they had created something beautiful, a family bound not by convention, but by love in its purest form. "Mommy, Daddy, look," Sophia called, holding up a dandelion gone to seed. "Make a wish." As their oldest daughter blew the delicate seeds into the air, watching them dance away on the breeze, Vivian thought about wishes and dreams and the unpredictable nature of life's journey. She thought about that devastating moment a year ago when she'd seen the text message on Nathaniel's phone, the confrontation at the country house that had seemed like the end of her world, but had actually been its beginning. "What did you wish for?" Lucy asked, running over to join them on the blanket. "If she tells, it won't come true," Emma reminded her sister solemnly. Sophia just smiled, a secretive smile that made her look momentarily older than her 6 years. "It already came true," she said simply, looking around at all of them gathered together. "It already did." As the afternoon light filtered through the maple leaves, casting dappled shadows across the faces of the people she loved most in the world, Vivian silently agreed. Whatever hardships they had endured, whatever unexpected paths they had traveled, had led them here, to this moment of perfect contentment, to a happiness deeper and more authentic than anything she could have imagined when she thought her life was falling apart. Sometimes endings were just beginnings in disguise. Sometimes betrayal led to healing. Sometimes the most complicated journeys yielded the most beautiful destinations. And sometimes, if you were brave enough to keep your heart open despite the risk of pain, life surprised you with blessings beyond measure. Not the life you had planned, but the life you were meant to live all along. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.